Hi everyone, welcome back to my small farm. My name's Naomi. Today I'm going to be transplanting my seedlings into bigger pots. I've got some peppers that really need to be transplanted and put into their larger pots, some eggplant as well, so I'll be doing that. So welcome to join me today and follow along as I do my chores and see if you might pick up a few ideas for your garden or your small farm and see how you might be able to manage something like this and doing it all on your own. Before I get my peppers transplanted, I'm just going to show you these tomatoes. If you remember from a video or two ago, I've had little tomato seedlings and I've transplanted them into their larger pots. And they're doing really well. You can see the bigger plants over there and some of these smaller ones. I'll be getting these basil plants transplanted, and you can see how nice and big they are already. Some of these are going to be going into the high tunnels, some will be going out into the field, and some cucumbers that'll be going into the high tunnels. And there's my beans still way back there, still waiting to get out into the high tunnels. I'm wearing a mask today because of all the fine particles that can blow around and possibly get into my lungs as I'm working with peat moss and rock dust, different things that could cause a problem. So I choose to wear a mask. Some people don't, but that's something that each person has to choose for themselves if they want to do that or not. Keeping myself safe is important to me, so that's what I choose to do. I'll be mixing a base of peat moss, perlite, and some compost, some glacial rock dust, bone and blood meal, and some sand, and that'll be the base of my potting mix. So I'll be mixing all that together. Here you can see it looks nice and fluffy and light. It's got all the amendments in here that I mixed in. And I just wanted to show you the container that I use. It's just a large container I got at the hardware store. One thing that's nice about this container is it's got little wheels at the bottom, and I just slide it in and out underneath my potting table here really easily. And that's really handy for me. And it's not a very expensive thing. It didn't cost me a whole lot. And it works really perfectly for what I'm doing here on the farm. I've got to get some of that potting mix out onto my table here. Try not to strain my back as much. And I'm going to be scooping some of it out onto the table. From there, I'll be able to fill my trays. So these trays, this is a 38 cell tray, and they're round because that works really well with my planting system. You'll see that in a few weeks when I'm getting ready to plant out into the field. I have certain things that make it easier to have a round cell. So just fill those right up, spread it around. And that's all ready. I'm not going to worry about watering them at this time. This mix doesn't get too hard to water, so I'll do that once I get my transplants in. That's another reason why I make sure they're well watered before I start transplanting. I tend to find it's easier to work and do a whole bunch of things all the same. It's more efficient that way. For instance, I mixed all my soil, then I filled all my trays, and then I'll do all the transplanting. Instead of filling the tray, transplanting, fill a tray and transplanting, I do it all together at the same time, and then it is a little bit more efficient. One thing I always like to do is make sure my plants are well watered, nicely soaked down before I transplant them so they're easier to get out of the trays. So I give them a good soak. I'll come back and soak them once more before I start pricking them out. Well, I'm ready to get some of these plants out into their new trays, pricking them out, the seedlings. Just one way for you to check to make sure you've got enough water in your trays is to pick them up, and if you're heavy, they're going to have enough water in them. If they're too light, then you need to water more. This little tool here is something that I've been using for a long time, a lot of years. It's called a nit picker, and it's made in Canada. And it's a stainless steel tool that you can use. It's narrow at one end and a little thicker at the other. And it's specially designed for pricking out plants when you're doing transplanting. So you just stick that into the cell and you can just pop your little plant out really easily. So I'm going to run my plants the length of the tray, and I'm going to just dig that little seedling out. Then I'm going to put a little hole in here with my finger and pop that into the soil. In order to make sure I don't lose track of my plants, I make sure to go up the whole row, and then I'm going to start here at the bottom again. And then before I get any other variety of plant in here, I will always make sure to label them, because there's nothing worse than seeing trays and trays of peppers or tomatoes and not knowing what they are. So you want to make sure to always label your plants. Otherwise, you're running around in the field trying to pick the things you want and you haven't got a clue where they are. So always label them and then label them out in the field, and that helps too. So I'm going to just stick my labels in there, making sure I don't lose my way. And then, even though I have eggplant in here, I'm going to just finish this tray up with some peppers, so I keep my plants somewhat separated. I've got this one tray done, and what I'm going to do is just take a little bit of soil and fill in some of the areas where I might need a little bit of extra soil. Then I'll give this tray a water and it'll be all done. Well, my little potting house is bursting with plants, and they're going to be growing and getting bigger. And in a few weeks, I'll be transplanting all these out into the field, or some of them really shortly into the high tunnels. So I have one more thing to do still. I'll need to record all my transplanting that I did today. Because I'm certified organic, I need to make sure that I'm recording everything that I do. And I do that as a requirement for my certification and for the verification board and the verification officer that will come inspect the farm. But even if you're not certified organic, recording what you're doing on your farm is a really valuable and important tool that you can have for your future. Even if you just have a garden, if you're taking some notes, recording things, and just making note of what you're doing on your farm, what you've been planting, how you do it, and what your harvests are, you're going to have a much better idea of what you can do for the future, where you might need to make some changes, and what's going really, really well for you. In the past, I've made decisions that have really helped me take certain crops away from our farming and add other things in, because I looked at the records and I could tell something really just wasn't making the money that I needed to in order for all that labor to happen. And other things, it was surprising how much I could make off of a certain thing and how little labor it really took. So we've made some big decisions on the farm here by just making choices based on the records that we've kept. So I encourage you to do that as well. Thanks for joining me today and following me along on my small farm and the chores I was doing today. Hopefully you learned a thing or two that was beneficial to you. If you like and subscribe, then you'll be able to follow me on my next video. And one's coming up through the year, I'll be doing more and more on my small farm, and you can see what I'm going to be doing. So please like and subscribe. And until next time, please take care.